city of Denver, the state of Colorado, you guys have been fucking amazing for the last 10 years.
Let me start off with a Twitch feed this morning, and I got to get the whole name right. Mile High Hockey Lab.
The city of Denver, the state of Colorado, you guys have been fucking amazing for the last 10 years.
Let me start off with a Twitch feed this morning, and I got to get the whole name right. Mile High Hockey Lab.
The city of Denver, the state of Colorado, you guys have been fucking amazing for the last 10 years.
Let me start off with a Twitch feed this morning, and I got to get the whole name right. Mile High Hockey Lab.
The city of Denver, the state of Colorado, you guys have been fucking amazing for the last 10 years.
Let me start off with a Twitch feed this morning, and I got to get the whole name right. Mile High Hockey Lab.
The city of Denver, the state of Colorado, you guys have been fucking amazing for the last 10 years.
Let me
Welcome to
Mile High Hockey Lab.
Mile High Hockey Lab.
Hello and welcome to the Mile High Hockey Lab. I'm here, Adrian Hernandez, your host. Can everybody hear me? I'm getting a look from Ezra. Can you hear me? Awesome. I'm happy to hear it. We are loud and clear coming from Colorado, talking Colorado Avalanche hockey. This is the Mile High Hockey Lab. I'm here with Ezra Parter, Jackie K, Evan Liu. We have a special guest coming on today who's going to help us talk everything Avs, some of the recent news, including Cale Makar's announcement as the NHL 24 cover athlete. So without further ado, while I have your attention, please head on over to Twitter, all of the streaming platforms and whatnot, and subscribe, share, and, like, we're really trying to get this thing out there to as many Avalanche fans as possible so that we can have some fun and get you all engaged in the conversation as well. I'm sure you all have a lot to say and want to be heard, but like I said earlier, without further ado, let us welcome our first guest of the new season, one Brennan. And Brennan, correct me if I pronounce your last name wrong, but I'm going to take a shot in the dart here. It's Vogt.
Vote like the election.
Like the election. See, I was close. I threw a little too much of the G in there, but that's okay. Thank you so much for joining us. You're from the Rink, correct? Colorado Avalanche?
Yep.
Awesome, man. Thank you for coming on. We are going to have you walk us through some of the stuff that I've seen you share on Twitter yourself with some videos. You had a great interview with Seth MacFarlane. Listen to that.
McFarlane.
Oh my gosh.
I wish it was Seth MacFarlane.
That would have been pretty cool. GM Chris MacFarlane. Jeez, can you tell it's been a while for Adrian? Holy moly. Stumbling out of the gates here. Nonetheless, thank you for joining us, Brennan. I appreciate you taking the time to join the Mile High Hockey crew over here for a session.
That was my pleasure.
Awesome. Well, let's just get right into it. So the news of the day, and of honestly like the month, I guess, if you really want to consider news and hockey right now, has been Cale Makar is actually, there's a Colorado Avalanche player on the cover of a EA Sports video game, which is pretty awesome and surprising. Maybe not surprising given who Cale Makar is, but surprising in that I don't think any Colorado athlete ever has been on the cover of a video game, not even Von Miller or John Elway. There's been 3. Am I wrong?
3. Sakic and Forsberg.
I was looking.
Okay, so those must have been older games then, right? Before the EA lockout when there was probably like the 2K games and stuff like that, and the
Come on, it was before your guys' time.
yeah,
It was
exactly.
That kick was because Danny Heatley got in trouble. They had to quickly replace him.
Oh,
Right.
oh,
Mhm.
okay,
That's what I saw.
Forsberg was like 97 or something like
Mhm.
that.
okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I was 5, so that checks out. I wasn't playing video games. I don't yet. Maybe
See, I would have been in middle school.
that's awesome.
That was my prime time for video games.
That's
Oh, now
yeah.
it's my prime time. I don't know. What
Yeah, I
you're
was gonna
talking
say, yeah.
about.
I feel like the prime time for video games for me has just grown into a bigger and bigger window as I've grown older. So I'm right there with you, Ezra.
So, Brennan,
But
did you have some of those games then? The Forsberg, or did you have any of those then?
I had the Forsberg.
Hey,
that's
I
cool.
had it for the original PlayStation. I've got it around here somewhere. It's just with moves up to CSU and then back and everything like that. Yeah, who knows where it's at?
I was gonna say we have 2 Rammies in the panel
Yep.
today.
Go Rams.
Wow. Yeah.
Got
Hey,
it in
we
the
do that.
background.
No, we got to do this one. This is the T-Wolves, the CSUP. I like the memorabilia you got behind you too, Brendan. Those of you who are only going to be listening to this that can't see, he's got some championship banners back there. He's got some pretty cool pennants, and there are some Rammy pennants back there as well. So
Gotta
that makes a lot
represent.
of sense. Yeah.
Mhm.
So Jackie, I'm going to send a question over to you, and thank you for joining us today. I'm just curious as to what you think. Are you surprised at all that Makar is on the cover of a video game? I feel like the answer to that is no. What do you think?
I mean, yes and no. Like you said, he's certainly worthy of it, and somebody that's popular and received a lot of attention. I guess after they had Zegras on the cover, I just felt like maybe they were just going for a different direction. You know, I know they had Austin Matthews before that, maybe more like traditional quote unquote big name players. But after they went with Zegras, I thought maybe they were looking for like a different type of player that they want to highlight. So it seems like they've kind of gone back into more of the more established, bigger name NHL players. And of course, can you ever expect a Colorado player to get national recognition? You know, you never want to bet on it.
Yeah.
She's not as bitter as I am, right?
Yeah. Well, expand upon that a little bit, Brendan. What do you think of what she points to there? Is that kind of like the East Coast bias thing that you're pointing towards a little bit?
Yeah, a little bit. And then I was mistaken. It's Peter Forsberg was on the 98 cover.
Okay.
And it doesn't look like Sakic was on any of them. So
No, he was. He replaced Heatley. Heatley's listed officially, but it was
so the 04 cover.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I remember because I got that.
I was
twice.
Let's see. That would have been like the year that I would have gone like to college and like not played any video games. But anyways, I mean, honestly, I'm surprised Nate hasn't gotten it first.
Same.
Because with the amount of trophies and hardware that Cale has, I'm not shocked. But Nate's got such star power that you would have thought he'd had it by now.
And not many defensemen have been on the cover either.
Yeah, true that.
Good point.
I'm thinking about that. I was like, I don't know how many maybe it's on that list that Ezra has in front of him, but like I don't know how many defensemen have been on there and like who even.
Last one was 19 with PK.
Yeah, PK.
Before that, I think.
Wow.
Been a while, so not too many.
I wouldn't.
I'm trying to think of like Ray Bork maybe, but
FNUF was 09.
Yeah.
Well, it seems like this is pretty obvious that Makar is becoming one of the faces of the league, which Avalanche fans should be pretty excited about. Anytime you basically have one of the faces of the league on your favorite team or the team that you follow the most, you're likely going to get a lot of coverage that you typically wouldn't if the circumstances were different. So I think this is going to be kind of a golden era for the Colorado Avalanche and their fans in terms of getting exposed to some content that they probably wouldn't have had without a player like Cale Makar on the squad. But Evan, I'm going to send this one your way. What do you think it is about Cale Makar? Obviously, put aside that he's a world-class athlete and probably the best at what he does in the world. But maybe kind of personality-wise, like why is he so easy to promote, in your opinion?
Well, I mean, besides the fact he is Cale freaking Makar,
Yeah.
It's actually kind of interesting that you asked that question because he, in my opinion, at least, I don't think he's the most marketable person out there. Like, he's not very open. I feel like his
Right.
his Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it nowadays,
I refuse.
is
Yeah.
like I don't think he tweeted before being given the honor of being on the cover for like 6 months or something like that, right? So like I don't know, he's not very active. He's just a put your head down, do the work kind of guy that hockey players are, right?
Right.
I think it might just simply be the fact that he is a superstar, and I already tweeted or posted about it, of like I don't play NHL. I have an old NHL game. I've learned from my FIFA days to not buy every single new EA game every year, but
Right.
I might simply just have to buy this one because it is Cale Makar. And
Well, yeah, and it's funny that you mentioned that because I typically nowadays you can just download games, right? So you don't have to go to the store and buy the physical copy. But I think I will go to the store and buy a physical copy of this game just because of the fact that it's got a Colorado Avalanche on the cover and be a nice little keepsake to have around the house and add to the Avalanche memorabilia and basement I got going myself. It looks like we had Jacob join us. Jacob, thank you for joining us, sir. It's good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Yeah, so I'll send this one your way since you just hopped in. Makar's going to have a lot of hype this season, and people are going to. I think I saw AJ from DNVR make a comment that people are going to try and tie the cover, Makar being on the cover, to how he performs this season. Obviously, what do you expect from Makar this season? I know, like, it's kind of hard to go up from being basically a record-setting defenseman for the Avalanche every single season, but I guess I'll put it this way: do you think he's back for a Norris again?
Yeah, I would think as long as he remains healthy, he's going to be in the Norris conversation every single year, pretty much. I mean, he played 60 games last year and was still right in it to the end.
Right.
At this point, I feel like he's just kind of competing against himself at this point, and like really the only measuring stick is just like, does he get better? And if he does, like, how? It's hard to describe it sitting here without being able to see it. But every year he's gotten better, and so I would just assume that next year we're going to continue to seeing the best version of Cale Makar.
Yeah, and Ezra, do you agree with that? And if you do, what does better look like for Cale Makar?
I do. And ultimately, I just think better looks like healthier. I don't think there's going to be any change to his play. I don't think there needs to be. He's fantastic. He just needs to be on the ice, not more often in games, but more often game to game. And kind of related to that, actually, now that I've stumbled into accidentally talking about his ice time, I think we'll probably see a little bit less ice time with a little more balance if the team is healthy, which will actually probably help boost his numbers a little bit because, he was grinding it out, working pretty hard last year. So maybe he can get a little bit of an easier run to some offense this season.
Well, I would totally agree with that, and I would double down on that, saying that like he's an explosive player, and when you've been skating for a long time, that's the part of your game that'll suffer when you're just pretty good. Even if you're tired, he's going to be good, but it's that explosiveness, those crazy plays that you just don't expect to see from a defender. That's the stuff you get from Cale when he's got fresh legs. Brennan, what do you think of that? Do you think that Cale Makar will see a reduction in ice time maybe this season due to overall health with the team, or do you think we're riding
he may get a little bit of reduction. He's played 26. I just had it pulled up. Last year he played 26-23 was his average, and that was his career's 24-29. So you can't really go much lower than that. And defense is a different type of skating, and I talk from experience on that one because I moved from forward to defense when I was playing myself, and you go from a 30-second shift to a 2-minute shift.
Right.
You have to make your legs last a little bit longer.
Yeah.
It's just a different type of style of skating. You're using your hips a lot more. You're twisting a lot more. And in his case, he's hitting a lot more. And it's just, he blows my mind, to be honest.
Yeah, and I guess what also doesn't necessarily help, but it's vital, is he's going to be on the power play. And if the Avs are doing the things they want to do, they want more power plays. and that means more ice time. And honestly, I'm more in the party who likes it when they keep the first pair on of defenders, or at least just Cale if they're just doing a one defender power play. Like I like when he stays on for almost the entire power play, because to me the whole thing kind of suffers. The way they break into the zone on the power play changes, and then it's like the second group has to have 2 hacks at it before they actually enter. So I feel like Cale is exquisite at entering the zone. He's the best skating defender in the world right now. So I think he's probably, like, I agree. I probably think he stays on more near his average in terms of ice time. I mean, he's on the cover of NHL for a reason. He's one of the best players in the world, and you got to play the best players in the world if you want to find and repeat success. So I'm kind of, I don't know, with the whole cover athlete and how it'll affect his season. All it means is he's going to get more attention, and I think Cale is built for the attention. He scored a goal in his first game. You don't think so, Brennan?
He hates the attention.
But I think he's good at shielding himself. He's
good at shielding himself. He's just so darn modest that he just, like, he hates the attention.
What do you think, Jackie?
I think he doesn't go looking for it, but I think he has fun with it. Like, you see him when he does the NHL media tour, like, he'll lean into the Cale thing, and like, he has commercials. He has this great Clips commercial. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he kind of plays into it. Like, he has this little bit of a witty side to him that I think he can bring out in those circumstances and kind of turn on the charm a little bit. So, I mean, he might not love being under the spotlight in a way, but in another way, I think he kind of knows how to handle it. And so maybe it goes back to your earlier question of, like, well, why did they pick him? Maybe they do feel like he's a good ambassador and he'll do good with the media and things like that.
Yeah, he's pretty much as is right now, given what we know now, the most wholesome professional athlete in my mind, that is as successful as he is successful. You know what I mean? Like, there's plenty of guys with the level of success and who have humility, but I think he's way more humble, at least to what he puts toward to the public, is that he's very humble, and that is something that the NHL is going to easily promote and say, like, this is what we want hockey players to be like. This is hockey culture, whether or not that's the truth. I think Cale Makar is a really good representation of hockey and NHL culture if they're going for wholesome. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, he still looks and acts like your kid brother or like the boy next door. You know, he's got that vibe going for him. So he's probably the cutest athlete to cover. Like, I don't mean like best looking, but I mean like just cute. You know, like,
I know what you mean, like plush toy cute.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like, he should be up there, not holding a hockey stick, holding a Beanie Baby or something.
Yeah. It's the rosy cheeks, man. It's the rosy cheeks and the red hair. Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's awesome. Congratulations to Cale Makar on being the NHL 24 cover athlete. Like I said, I'll be going and getting myself a hard cover of that. But to move on to another Makar, we just had Jacob release one of the top 25 under 25 installments on milehighhockey.com. And if you haven't already, head on over to the website. That's milehighhockey.com and check out our top 25 under 25. It's pretty self-explanatory. We rank the best 25 athletes in the Colorado Avalanche organization that are under the age of 25. And today's was Taylor Makar, also at UMass, taking after his brother currently. Jacob, I'll just let you take it away here. Tell me what you've seen so far in Taylor Makar's progression since being drafted by the Avalanche, coincidentally the same year that Cale Makar got his contract extension.
Yeah, so I guess I should preface anything you're saying. I went to UMass, so there's a very clear bias in play with all of this.
Nice.
You know, Taylor Makar, he's a developmental prospect. That's, you know, basically been the MO from the start. He didn't really play a whole lot his freshman year, and when he did, he was in and out of the lineup. It was just a really inconsistent role, and when he did, it was, you know, kind of minimal fourth line minutes. Last year was the first year that he really stepped into a larger role. It was kind of a middle six role. It's always hard to get a grasp of what the actual lines are in Greg Carville's system because he shifts them so much from game to game and matchup to matchup. But it was generally second line, third line for most of the year. But UMass had just a horrible year. It was hard to evaluate really anybody. The goaltending just completely fell apart. There were injuries everywhere. Everybody was playing out of position. And
Okay.
the line that he was on was pretty much the only consistent force in the forward group. And he was, in my opinion, he was the driving force on that line. And
Nice.
it was a tale of two halves. Is the first half of the season, he had one game where he scored a goal and had an assist, had a scoring burst, but then he had a long scoring drought, which has kind of been his bugaboo on campus. And then towards the end of the year, the last like 2-3 weeks of the season, something really changed. You could see him beating more players down the ice, beating players to the front of the net, and just really starting to use his size and his speed in a way that he really hadn't. So I think going into this season, there's much higher expectations. He's probably going to be on, again, it's hard to get a grip on the lines, but first or second line for UMass. He's going to be one of the driving players on the team. And I think it's hard to say anything for certain of his first 2 years, because he's really, basically in the piece I said he went from the doghouse to the top line was essentially his journey from freshman year to last year. And so this upcoming season, I think, is the first year where it's real expectations, where, we're going to see what this guy actually is as a prospect, because you see it in flashes. He's big. Like I said in the piece, he's 1 inch shorter and like 20 pounds lighter than Mikko Rantanen. He's pretty fast. His shot has gotten a lot better since he came on campus. And so there's the framework of a really interesting player right there. The biggest question with him is just whether he can put it all together. And he's slowly starting to, but again, we'll see this upcoming season. That's going to be the big determinant.
Yeah. And I know there's so many lines to draw between he and his brother, obviously, because they're brothers. But I think if you look at them as individuals, there's not very many lines to draw between them based on just the positions they play. I know in my script, I asked, is Taylor a better skater because he's exposed to Cale? But I don't think it works that way. Otherwise, all of us could probably skate pretty well, given how much hockey we watch, the exposure to good skating. If that's not his skating, I guess, Brennan, I don't know if you have a beat at all on Taylor Makar, but if you do, is there a certain part of his game that he's exceeded expectations, or do you think?
I mean, I've only seen him in drills, and
Okay.
drills aren't the same as gameplay. So
Right.
when Evan and I were watching him during the development camp, and Jackie too, and he looked better this year, in my opinion. He was a lot faster in the drills. He actually did look bigger. I don't know if he grew over the last year or not, but it looked like he had put on a little bit of size there. And his shot, like Jacob was saying, did look a lot faster than the previous year before. He seemed like he had more confidence, and that could be because of the fact that he had been forced up on the lines in that case.
I feel like with a team and a school like UMass, I think a good indication of how really good Cale Makar was how competitive and successful that school was during his time there. So I think that's going to be an interesting barometer of how truly good Taylor is, as well as if that team is competitive on a national level. I think it'll say a lot, especially if he is in an incredibly vital role, like say getting top line minutes and being on the power play and stuff like that. I think that bodes well. But Jackie, Brandon said that he and Evan were at skate, kind of seeing him go through some drills. Was there anything you took away from Taylor in those drills that you watched him participate in, I guess?
I think the point about confidence is good, and it might just also be because he'd been to another development camp. They get more familiar with the coaches and the staff and everything, and I think that helps. He does these little uncanny things that are kind of like uncanny to Cale, like the little head fakes. Like he can kind of do that. And so it is kind of weird when you see him on the ice, because you are reminded of Cale. Like it's not just because we know he's his brother and everything. Like there are things that are familiar. I would say a lot of it's genetics, like his skating. The way that Cale can skate is a lot of natural given talent. And so when you're looking at siblings, that's something that you hope that carries through. So I think,
we saw it with the Sedin twins, so maybe it's just that simple.
Some siblings definitely aren't the same, and obviously he's size different, different position, plays different way, but there are little things there that do carry through, which does make him an interesting prospect because he's not just a seventh rounder. He's
Right.
the brother of a generational player. But we'll see. I don't know. I feel like the Avs are very interested in a lot of these later round picks and college guys that they sort of drafted to hold on to in the pipeline on the reserve list for us. We'll see, but like Jacob said, hopefully he has a big opportunity ahead of him this year. And
and hopefully he fills that opportunity with success, and we get to see him kind of make a jump possibly, and that will be an incredible. You want to talk about stories about Cale Makar, but imagine the stories and the build up surrounding the Makar brothers and yada yada, the jersey sales, and the Avalanche are probably hoping they found lightning in a bottle, because just the money itself that would come with the both of them being successful for the same team would be unreal. But I do want to move on a little bit. Evan, I'll send this your way. I don't want to do any spoilers, although I think everyone knows who our number one top 25 under 25 is. But given what the ones we've announced so far, are there any that you are particularly bullish on and that you might think will make the roster sooner than some might expect?
That's a good question, because as Jackie mentioned, the Avs are definitely not the best when it comes to drafting, and I'd look at a guy like Jeremy Hansel, who's 6th round draft pick from this year and stood out at camp. And I know that Brennan and Jackie can say the same thing. He stood out. He was, and obviously you could say he's a late bloomer, you could say whatever, right? Did really, really well with Seattle Thunderbirds. But he still hasn't been signed. He's not even in Loveland. And so, that kind of questions as to why then, right? Is it just a matter of showing your power, I guess? I'm not really sure, right? But I would look at him maybe, for example, as one of them. Another one I could maybe think of is I don't even know. That's also just how little the draft or the prospect pool. Right? That's just another example of that. We barely had 25 for this year.
I said it in the Taylor Makar piece that part of the reason I was able to rank him as high as I did, which I'll admit I ranked him too high, but
I think you had him at 10, right?
Yeah, I know. I still would put him somewhere in the 12 to 15 range. I just, there's so many developmental prospects in that range that I feel like it's just pick a guy at random and you assign him a number and you can't be wrong.
Yeah. I think you're right. At least for the Colorado Avalanche, that's definitely the case. Ezra, what about you? Is there anyone so far in our top 25 that stuck out that you are excited about?
Well, Evan mentioned Hansel already, and I just wanted to touch on that. I feel like the reason they don't sign these guys might just be that they place a lot of value on veterans in the AHL, and it's where does his roster spot? Who loses a roster spot if you bring in Hansel? And it's a guy I don't know. Brad Hunt's not going to lose his roster spot, but they're putting value on having a guy like Brad Hunt there over a guy like Hansel, which is interesting because it aids the development path of other young guys to have veterans around maybe, but also, you've got this prospect who needs ice time to grow too. So it's a weird mix. I don't know. I kind of get the concept of keeping veterans around to make the team competitive and a good environment for young players to learn, but at the expense of prospects you're just kind of throwing away. It's bizarre. But a guy who is interesting to me of the guys we've posted so far, I guess beyond Hansel, I would go Colby Ambrosio. He has a chance to do a little bit more in college and show that he deserves a shot at a real chance at an AHL job next season, perhaps. But I wouldn't say I'm super high on him. I'm just interested to see what happens.
Gotcha. And Brennan, tell me, what do you think of that situation? Do you agree with Ezra that the Avalanche prioritize maybe veterans in the AHL more than a guy like Hansel, or what's your take on that?
Well, yeah, it's the reason exactly why they have Hunt is to be that guy to give that veteran presence in Loveland, and then of course be able to jump up and be the 7th or 6th man the D in Denver there, and I'm complete aghast of why they haven't signed Hansel either, considering I was sitting in the corner next to Evan and I was just like, wait, this kid has such fast feet and he's making the shots so much better than the draft picks that were lower than him. I just don't understand it. But what do I know? I'm just a guy sitting there writing about all this stuff. So
I hear you on that. Yeah.
Think about it too with Brad Hunt and everything, because Brad Hunt is like 30, 37, 38, right? He's pretty old.
Yeah, hey, watch it.
Yeah, I mean,
my hand.
Hang on.
No, but in serious thought though, like if they give Hansel one more year in Seattle, maybe, and tears it up again, and then Brad Hunt decides that that's it for him, right?
Brad Hunt's 34.
Oh, he's only 34. Oh, dang! I thought
according to the internet.
Shit by NHL standards, but he's.
I'm 30. I'll be 39 in 2 months. So
yeah.
Well, I get the point could still stand, I guess, if they Avs wanted to move on, or even like Jack Johnson, for example. Like if Jack Johnson decides that this is it, and then Brad Hunt moves up to the Avs full time, and then Hansel can come in in Loveland next year. I'm not really sure exactly. As Brennan said, I'm just the one that writes about it and looks in. But there's hopefully at least some sort of plan for Hansel in the future.
Well, that's the thing for me is there a plan? Because they've drafted older guys before and they just don't sign them. And I feel like Hansel's situation is very similar to Brandon Sagan, who they drafted like 5 years ago or so.
Yeah, and they just let him walk.
Yeah, very similar situation that they both did really well in the Memorial Cup, got a lot of attention for that. And the disappointing thing for me is that Hansel would have been a free agent. If he had gone through this draft, and he was literally probably like 2 hours away from it, he would have been a free agent. So at that point,
and he definitely would have signed somewhere. He would have been in an NHL system somewhere for sure.
Right, exactly. Maybe not in the LC, I don't know. But at the very least, somebody out there would have given him an AHL opportunity, right?
Yeah.
And play pro somewhere.
Yeah.
So by the Avs drafting him, that takes all his market away. Now he can't sign with anybody. And so it's up to just the Avs what happens with him. And that's the disappointing part is if somebody has earned themselves an opportunity at the next level, and then the Avs take that away from him, now the question is there a plan? Is it the worst thing ever if he goes back to Seattle for 1 year? He was a late bloomer. He only really played 2 full seasons in the WHL. Okay, but then you have to have a plan for him next year. You have to sign him, you have to bring him to the AHL, and you have to give him a real role. You can't do what you did with Sagan, which was then just throw him in the ECHL and an AHL contract and never look at him again. That's doing these players a disservice to their opportunity.
2021 was cut short by, only a pandemic. So
right. I was saying it's not his fault why he didn't play a full year that year,
right.
But he wasn't in the WHL before then.
And I mean, I wonder if there's a chance at him still getting that AHL contract or an entry level contract or something, because looking at the Eagles roster, there are only 5 defensemen signed, or like. They still only have 5 defensemen on the roster.
There's quite a few because there's like Middleton and Clermont and Amit. They've got Fairbrother.
Fairbrother will be there too. Yeah, that's true.
The two guys, Achon, and then the other one that I'm going to try to pronounce that starts with an S. The Avs gave both of those guys $450,000 guaranteed, so they're going to be playing in the AHL.
Okay. So there's more guys than just aren't on this list for some reason.
Right. Yeah, it's not about Brad Hunt. Like he's obviously like the next to go into the NHL. It's all these other guys that they have signed, and so it's just a matter of if there's a plan, and I'd like to see a plan because, like I said, it sucks to see a guy have his opportunity taken away. Like it's a good use of a draft pick if you want to sign that guy.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Then you're getting ahead of everybody.
Keep the pick.
And you're sticking your flag in the ground and you're saying, this is my guy, get away. But you do that and then you just say, oh, well, you can go back to junior and have a good time.
With according to Cap Friendly, they've got 8 defensemen signed on 2 ways.
That makes it pretty difficult.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm on the wrong list apparently.
But I do think they love the whole like, hey, come in and earn it kind of thing. But then they also make these decisions like way ahead of time. Like they don't have guys come in and earn anything. Like they don't sign guys out of rookie camp. They don't sign their invites. You know, they love the idea of it, but when it comes down to it, if a guy has shown out at camp, it's like it doesn't really matter either. So,
Yeah.
I mean, we'll really see in a year. Like I said, like is this year the most critical? No, but they have to absolutely do something with him next year, or else they just gonna let him walk.
Agreed. And then it's kind of a waste of a pick, but I guess, like you said, that's kind of the MO as of late, it seems, with those later round picks. But let's move on just a little bit. I guess we can keep it here, though, sort of. You say we saw Hansel kind of stand out in some of these skates that have been happening at Family Sports Center. We've even seen former Avalanche players there, including Eric Johnson. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But I do want to see, you know, not among the prospects, the guys who have been at those skates. And I'll send this one over to you, Brandon, just start. Has there been anybody in those that have stood out? Maybe guys you didn't expect to see putting in that much work, or competing with other players that you didn't expect them to compete with?
I keep in mind they're doing drills, so
Right.
and they're really not doing like any scrimmaging or anything like that. You know, McDermott's been there almost daily, and I hope we see that work translate onto the ice.
He's our darling over here on this program. We're nothing
Right.
but Curtis McDermott.
He's everyone.
Huge McDermott fans.
Yeah, well, he's everyone's darling because he's the butt of everyone's joke, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that was me being facetious to say.
Yeah,
right there.
and then I've been really impressed with the amount of work that Andrzej Pavel's been putting in, because he's been there. Oh gosh, more than Sam Girard's been there, to be honest. And Andrzej Pavel's gonna be he's gonna be like he's gonna be a top 6 forward, if not be one of those first players that's gonna be called up when it comes to injury for the Avs, and he can play all 3 wings. He'll be a grinder. Even McFarland was saying that he plans on Schneekloth was saying that he plans on using him on the penalty kill and things like that. So he'll get that experience with the Eagles. It's a matter of whether he'll earn it on the call up with Bednar.
Yeah, that would be pretty awesome. He'd be somebody that would kind of sneak in under the radar, that would really add to the depth if he's playing at that level. That would be that he's one of the guys that I think he is under 25 years old, correct?
Yeah, I'm writing his.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because I remember voting for him and putting him a little bit higher than I honestly expected to. Might be because of like the lack, like we spoke to, the lack of a prospect pool. But I think the fact that he's kind of out there and putting in all that work, it does appear like he's working towards something. Like maybe there's been a communication between he and management that has really spurred on. Not necessarily like a guy needs more of an excuse other than he might get to play in the NHL, but I think if you're communicated with and they say, hey, you might have a real chance this year if you put in all the time, he's gonna grind. And I think we're seeing that from him. The other guy I'm kind of interested in, I know we got training camp probably going to start somewhere around September 21st. For me, this is going to be Jonathan Drouin. Maybe that, not that he has much to prove, but I want to see how he gels. Evan, who in heading into training camp has the most to prove in your mind, and is it Drouin to you as well?
Drouin is a good one. I like that one for sure. I just feel as though his expectations aren't as high as this guy's. And that guy I'll go with is Ryan Johansson. He's coming off of his injury in Nashville, coming down off of that high that he's had, in Smashville now for the last few years, right? Brand new environment, and obviously Mile High, recovering from injury. I know he's also been at a lot of the skates that Brennan has been going to recently, and been, working on things. it seems as though he's, starting to fit in well, at least by the looks of it. Even though, of course, it is just only drills and with only a few people, and it's not a whole team setting like we'll see during training camp coming up here in a month. But I think he's going to be one that has a lot of pressure on his backs, because we circle back to it again for the third, fourth, fifth year in a row. Who's our 2C, right? And Johansson is that, right? That's what a lot of people are wanting him to be, maybe expecting him to be, depending on who you ask, in the organization, right? So
Yeah.
I think he's definitely also going to be on my radar for sure, 100%, along with Druin.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think that's been the most pressing question, like you said, the last 3 or 4 years. We had the question answered when Nazem Kadri was in town, and then since then, and we didn't consider the question answered until the Avalanche won the cup, and then there he went. So it's true, that has been the question for the last 4 or 5 years. But Jackie, we mentioned that these guys have been doing drills, Johansson being one of them. Does it feel like he's a full go, or does it feel like he's doing drills as a form of rehabilitation to you? Or both, I guess. It could really be both.
I guess it's hard for me to say because I haven't seen him personally, but I do think it's interesting that he's been here, and it's also good to see what people are doing about a month out of camp. It's really interesting to see when people show up or how often they skate. So it's definitely been a great resource. I want to say kudos to you, Brennan, for giving us that, because
yes, thank you.
Last year we figured out Landeskog wasn't on the ice, and I think that was like a huge revelation from these skates that seemed to pass by, maybe you could say more mainstream folks. And so, if suddenly somebody really isn't there, that's going to be something worth keeping an eye on. But Johansson in particular, I think he's probably fine.
I mean, if you compare it to the Landeskog situation, like you said, he's out there and he's skating. So, and Landeskog was not, and that kind of tells you where Landeskog was in terms of his recovery. So, that makes sense. Brandon, have you seen him skate at all in person? Jackie says she hasn't been able to see him. And if you have, does he seem like he's doing pretty good?
Johansson or Landy?
Johansson.
Yeah.
We know Landy.
I was like,
Landy would be swimming.
You mentioned both, so Johansson, he was out there today, and in fact, he's had his brother with him for the most part the last week too. So, Johansson's looking okay, considering they never actually disclosed exactly what he had done. As far as I know, it was just lower body, and that was it. But
I think it was a cut ankle tendon, not the Achilles. It was like one that's more above the ankle itself, like on the side.
Right.
So I think that's what his issue was. So something definitely not as major as the Achilles, but still something that kind of takes time or something like that. But the fact that he's been on the ice this much, I think he's probably good to go.
Yeah, and he's pretty out there. He's out there as much as most of the other guys. And I put it in our chat here, but
I'm trying to load it up right now so we can show the crew as well.
Yeah, there's the only thing that I'm noticing that he's struggling with right now for the most part is altitude, and I had a source even ask him that. It's like, how's the altitude treating you? And he's like, oh, I'm getting there.
It's brutal. Here's that. So let me mute that. Go continue.
So, I've come back from sea level at one point and then skated, and it took me a couple weeks to actually adjust. And I can't imagine him being in Nashville for years and then coming to altitude and trying to play. It's gonna take some time. So that's probably why he was here so early, on top of trying to rehab. And the skating's looking okay. He looked like he was grinding his teeth a little bit earlier today, but who's to say if that's because of the altitude or something's bugging him?
Yeah. Well, like we mentioned, the 2C is going to be huge for the Avalanche this season, and as it has been for the seasons past, and it's nice to see him out there. Like we mentioned, the difference between he and Landeskog is that we're seeing him skate. And last season we didn't see Landeskog out here in these pre-camp skates. But I do want to move on to you, Ezra. We talked a little bit about Jonathan Drouin, and in terms of somebody who's has a lot to prove, I think he's on that list for the Avalanche, and just in terms of the NHL in general and his market value. What does a successful camp for Jonathan Drouin look like in your mind?
Well, I mean, I think ultimately his success is going to be, the season as an Avalanche is going to be determined by where he shakes out in the lineup. So for me, a successful camp looks like him stapling himself to that McKinnon-Lehkonen line.
Okay.
If he excels there at camp and he gets a run there during the season, I think that's going to spell success. And if he doesn't, he can find success elsewhere. But I really think that's what the best version of camp is for him is he finds a fit there. Bednar trusts him up there, and the result is that line's sticking together. It could also be Rantanen instead of Lehkonen, but my guess is they're looking at that top six as McKinnon's line and Rantanen's line to some extent, especially given the question mark on Johansson.
Well, I will say that Drouin making it on that top line would be like best case scenario and something that no one really would have penciled in. And so if that's the case, I mean, look out, because that bodes well for Colorado's depth in that forward group. All of a sudden it would feel like, wow, they have their 2C and they have this new weaponized guy on the top line. Like, the Avalanche just got deep again in their forward group. So hopefully that's the case. And I agree that's what a successful camp looks like for Jonathan Drouin to me as well. Jacob, I'm going to show you real quick a video that Brennan Vogt actually got of Chris, not Seth MacFarlane. And this one hit the X or the Twitter, the X or whatever you want, and it kind of spread like wildfire because over the offseason there's been a lot of talk about the Avalanche being grittier and being more pesky. And I'm going to show you that clip here now, and then I'm going to see what you think and if you agree with the Avalanche general manager here. Maybe.
Well, yeah, I think with the Avs, there were certain areas we wanted to address, and I think with the combination of like Ross Colton and Miles Wood, we added not only skill and guys that can skate and chip in offensively, but provide a little bit of abrasiveness, a little bit of that hard to play against factor that we certainly have had over the last number of years. But I think with these guys, it's a clear part of their DNA.
So let's just get right into it. Jacob, what do you think? Do you agree with the GM here? Do you think the Avs have gotten grittier? And do you think that was necessary, I guess, is my follow-up to that?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of think, it's always easy to point to a playoff loss and say, like, this was specifically the reason when, it could be any number of reasons. Seasons are long. But I do think that, the Seattle playoff loss did kind of provide a good too long didn't read for what the Avalanche's problems were that, the last year is that particularly in the, the middle six, the bottom six, they got hollowed out by injuries and they just, they weren't as tough. I think that like letting Evan Rodriguez walk and then spending that money on bigger guys like Wood and Colton, I think was kind of a mission statement for them. They felt they got pushed around, by Seattle's bottom six, and they don't want that to happen again. For a team like the Avalanche, all you have to do is break even on your bottom 6 minutes and then, let Mikko and Nate steal the show at that point. And so I think that I think a lot of this has been a response to that Seattle series where they just felt like they got pushed around.
What's funny too, is it has, it's eerily reminiscent of the way the rhetoric changed after the Avs lost to Vegas in that playoff series. And it was on the back of very similar talks. Like Vegas's third line just absolutely destroyed the Avalanche third line throughout the series.
You literally just took the words out of my mouth.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, that makes sense to me. Brennan, first of all, thank you for being present and for getting the access to the general manager and asking that question, because I think it's a very pressing topic right now, wondering if that's the correct adjustment. Is that the correct adjustment in your opinion, or is it kind of an overcorrection?
Well, I mean, every team needs to have some grit, and then Josh Manson can only do so much. Curtis McDermott, I think, hesitates a little bit because he doesn't want to spend time in the box. And I mean, you saw his hesitation last year towards the end of the season, like the last quarter of the season. He literally would go out there and let other people do the fighting, and everybody was just standing there like,
come
what
on,
the heck?
guy.
Yeah,
Let's
it's
go,
like
guy.
it hurt. You're out on the ice, and Nate's doing the fighting. Why are we letting our top three forward doing it? But we've seen the experience of Ross Colton fighting with LOC and during the Stanley Cup playoff, the Stanley Cup final, and that's the type of game that he brings to any game. So he's an annoying player. He gets in your face. In fact, that's the player I've always kind of compared him to is Logan O'Connor, just with a little bit more grit. He'll be more in your face. He'll be hitting you a lot more, and he can score a little bit more.
Yeah.
And sorry if you guys hear my kid screaming up there, but
I thought it was a cat.
yeah, Mom just got home, so
no
and then Miles Wood, I'm not too familiar with. All I know is that he got hip surgery last year, but it seems like it's not really affecting him. Jonathan Drouin, I am extremely familiar with just because I watched him come into the Tampa Bay system as a Tampa Bay fan. And as you guys can see behind me with the Tampa Bay.
Oh, I do see.
So, Drouin, I mean, I was sad to see him leave Tampa, but I knew why he was doing it. And I think Montreal ruined him, to be honest. Well,
I hope that doesn't happen with Alex Newhook, but continue.
Well, my biggest reasoning was, and I've got a theory about this, and I was telling my wife about it, was that during the press conference, he literally said, "I'm going to be living in my mom's basement." And then I'm not trying to be a jerk or anything, but he said then, like, I think a year later, he started really having mental problems and stuff like that. I mean, he's a guy in his middle 20s, close to 30, and he's living in his mom's basement. 2 and 2 together? Come on.
Yeah. Well, I hope so maybe a change of scenery will help is what I'm getting from that. And maybe that situation.
And being back with Nate, I think is going to have a lot to do with it too. So
yeah. I think Nate will finally have a guy too that he's comfortable. I mean, I think he's always been comfortable with telling his teammates when they need to be better. But I think Drouin will be the kind of guy, he'll be the first guy he'll be comfortable with, like truly taking him under his wing and kind of walking him through the stuff that he does to be a professional at his level. That I think you're right. Like that exposure to McKinnon on Drouin's side should only benefit Drouin in terms of his professionalism. And if it's truly a situation where he's had all the skill all along, but he's just lacked some of that professionalism, if McKinnon can't be the one to get it across to him, I don't know that there's a person on earth that will be able to. So I think that does bode well for his situation. This being said, though, I want to pull up our poll of the week, which is something I do every single week. If you follow us on Twitter, you can see it there. That's at MHH_lab. If you don't follow us, head on over there now and do so. Sorry, I keep calling it Twitter. Come on, guys. I don't know what to do.
Why not? Like that's
it's Twitter. It's Twitter.
Yeah, Twitter since 2006. Come on.
Exactly. So here is our poll of the week. I said, if the Avalanche don't win a Stanley Cup this coming season, what level of success would you constitute as a step in the right direction? I think that I was on you, Ezra, trying to keep track of who I've talked to. So we'll start with you. What's your answer to this poll and why?
Well, I mean, I think any team, any season where this team competes for the last couple rounds of the playoffs is a good season. You can't expect to be winning a cup every year. You can't expect to be in the final every year. But if they can't get out of the first round, that's going to be really disappointing. So for me, it's just, being competitive for the conference final. You know, they don't even have to make the conference final, but if they really could have gotten there, you know what I mean? Barring injury, barring whatever else, I'll feel good about the season. But if they don't show out like they're a conference champion, or at least conference champion capable, that's going to be pretty disappointing.
Yeah, I did this poll because I titled the segment "Reading the Room" because I'm trying to get a feel on kind of where expectations are, because I feel like you're right. Like, I think that it's kind of unrealistic to expect a team to go to the Stanley Cup final every season, but the way last season ended and kind of the context of how the whole season went, given with injuries and everything, I wonder at how expectations have been tempered among Avalanche fans. And so I'll send it over to you, Evan, as a fan and managing editor of the site. What are your expectations for the Avalanche? What was your answer to this poll, and why?
Yeah, I answered winning a playoff round, and I'm honestly surprised it is that low. I thought it would be at least a little bit higher. And sure, there are definitely lofty expectations for this team when it comes to competing and trying to make it to Western Conference Final or Stanley Cup Final every year, right? So if I get it, I guess, but I would also think that coming off of a defeat in the first round to the new guys, right? Like you would might. Sorry, there's dogs sitting, but yeah, she's very nuts. So
we got another guest. Come on, just point the camera over there.
Oh, I know, but I'll keep it quick here then. Like we saw a transition, right? We saw the two big guns of the East and the West fall this year in the first round, right? So you would at least think that you'd want to win at least one playoff round, let alone obviously win 3 or 4. But I would want to at least win one.
Yeah. Well, and just so you know, furry friends are always welcome on this program. But yeah, I agree with you. I think winning a playoff round is probably a healthy expectation. I don't know if that's my expectation as a fan who had a lot of fun in 2022. But a healthy expectation, I think, is to see them get into the playoffs again and win a playoff round. Before I go to Jackie, Brennan, what was your answer to the poll if you saw it? And can you expand as to why?
I'd say making the conference final, because at that point, you've retooled the team. You need to make the conference final. Your expectation after winning a cup is going to be not just making the playoffs. You want to win the cup, and you want to get to the conference final and take out Edmonton and all them in the process. What is going on there, Evan?
Look at this. Evan is having a fun time with the four-legged friend over here right now. Look at that. That's great.
She's very loving. And is not been getting from me, so I apologize.
Yeah. Speaking of attention and me, sometimes I feel like I don't spread the attention quite well. But Jackie, tell me, what was your answer to this poll and why? What is a level of success, step in the right direction look for you for the Colorado Avalanche?
I believe my answer was conference finals, but it's tough to say that because I think it's tough to say your expectation is something like that, because even good teams need good luck, they need good fortune and things like that to get there. But I also agree with the point, like, we're in the window, we've already won once, we're not growing, so it shouldn't be some sort of like incremental improvements good enough. So I find it really hard to answer because they're not, it's like, what are they doing? It's kind of hard to say because I know Brennan mentioned retool, and it does feel like they've done that, but I feel like I still think their depth has taken quite a hit, and they've only really refilled the bucket of what they lost this summer. They haven't even gone back to the summer before, and it's like, it's really hard to say that because, and like, I'll go back to what I said, I don't want to just say, oh, you got to make it all the way, because to me, if you fail to meet expectations, then you have to do something about it. So they definitely need to make the playoffs, right? I mean, that's like bare minimum. And yes, I really would like to see them win a round. Like, it would be pretty disappointing if this group can't win around again. But beyond that, what can you truly expect on a
Yeah,
yearly
and
basis?
to your point, like when the Avs did win a cup, it felt like that season and the season before, the talk was this roster is stacked. They have the depth. There's no reason this team shouldn't make it a Stanley Cup appearance and potentially win one in the next 3 years. And I don't really feel like I have that same thought about this team. If that's true about this team, it will be a surprise. And
Yeah,
it
like
will be
what?
largely because Johansson and Drouin did more than anyone could have expected and Wood and all these guys that we've brought in. That's the kind of the only way we would feel that confident again is if we were surprised by their arrival and how well they fit in. Would you agree?
I think even more than that needs to go right. Like
Yeah.
they,
That's fair.
I mean, at bare minimum, those guys just need to take up the slack for who they're replacing. We're not even talking about like they pretty much need like a miracle, somebody to. I know that's
someone out of
terrible,
nowhere,
right? Like they're only going to win the cup if a miracle happens.
But I'm with you. I
They
agree
need
with you
like
in
a
terms of like the
huge
depth.
surprise.
Yeah.
They need like a big, oh my god, like big wow, something that. Hey,
I'm not
maybe with
sure.
their $2 million, they're gonna get some great player that'll make a big difference. But it's funny.
Let's hear it,
looking
Ez.
back-
Yeah, I'm
Oh,
not
I'm
sure I
sorry.
agree with that because I mean, like, who's better positioned to win the cup this season than Colorado? The list is pretty short. There are teams ahead of them. I would say, looking at rosters, like, oh, on paper that team's better. Like a Toronto, maybe a Vegas.
Carolina.
Yeah.
I like Toronto. They haven't been able to do it, but the roster's good on paper.
Brennan.
I mean, Vegas.
That's the story of Toronto, though.
No,
Yeah.
yeah, and I don't think they will, but that's my point. Like the list is short, but also I don't really think they're going to do it. So like Colorado's right in the mix with the top group teams in the league, I would say. And yeah, things have to go right, but that's true for literally every team. So I don't know that it's a miracle. But my big one is Josh Manson. Is he going to be able to be a player, or is he
Good
going to
point.
be injured all season?
Is he going to be able to
His role's
produce
not
to what
big
his
enough.
contract is? Yeah.
His
They're gonna
role's not
trade
big
him.
enough that Manson
Yeah.
makes that big.
It really comes down to like, is building from the defense first going to succeed?
The work.
That's
Yeah.
what this team has done. They're like, we don't have to invest that much in the bottom six because our defense is going to be incredible. And it wasn't last year because of injury. But if it is this year, I don't think they need a miracle. I think they just need health.
Well,
Yeah, that's
I don't
very
think
true.
you can count out your. I've said this before. Like, I'm not going to count out elite players because elite players do elite things. But if that was the case, then Connor McDavid would have already won a cup, and he hasn't. And so it does take a team. And you're right. There is no bulletproof team out there. There's nobody I'm like scared of or anything like that. But you can't win without depth and good depth, like not just warm bodies, but guys that are actually going to contribute and make this team better. And I think they've lost a lot. Like, looking back on it, it didn't feel like that was their one shot when they had the stacked team and everything. But looking
Agreed.
back, that team really does look stacked. And so,
Yeah, well, and now that you mentioned that, the way you put that, Ezra, it's not like that's been true about every Stanley Cup champion. That they on paper before the season they looked like this crazy deep team. So maybe a miracle is putting it strongly, but I guess it will be maybe a more unconventional route will be required. Like a surprise, I guess, is true. You know, we'll need some production from players that we haven't quite expected. So
if we're
Excuse me.
talking surprises, you know, and if we're talking surprises and big players, we have not heard much about it since the initial announcement and release of information about Gabriel Landeskog, in that he could be back for the playoffs in 2024. But you know, who knows at this point, right? But you know, we can throw.
that would make a huge difference.
I say exactly. We can throw that what if out there, right? That would obviously make a huge difference. To get your captain back for game one of the playoffs, right? Obviously, we're not going to speculate here because God knows what, and we hardly know anything about it really up to this point, except that he's just rehabbing. So time will tell.
He's been rehabbing, and then of course, I mean, I would be hesitant to throw him into a game situation right off the bat like that, considering the man hasn't skated in a game since June 26, 2022.
Crazy.
And that's the only reason I know the exact date is because that's when the last Stanley Cup game was.
Well, maybe. Well, see, they don't have much choice. They can't play him in the regular season.
Yeah,
they
true.
won't have the money to.
Right.
Maybe if all goes well, they'll have to send him on a conditioning stint to the Eagles. And I know that we talked about.
We talked about that. Yeah, that would be so fun.
I would so buy a Landeskog Eagles jersey. Oh, count me in, and I would be right there, right up front with that interview.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that would be really cool and quite a story, honestly. Something to be really excited about. So like Evan said, not to speculate, but that would be quite a surprise indeed, and that would be a surprise that would benefit the Avalanche quite considerably.
Well, and I've dug into it, and I think I answered someone's question because they asked me like long before the surgery happened, is like you'd have to time it perfectly.
Yeah.
Because he can only be he can only be down there, I think, for like 6 games or 6 days or something like that. I remember looking it up, but it was like a short stint, and it affects the cap on the Avalanche at the same time. And God, if he ever were to get hurt while he's with the Eagles, and
God,
you can send someone on conditioning while they're on LTIR. So
yeah, but like he can only be there for like so many days or so many games or something like that.
Yeah.
So
I think it's like, is it 3 games or 10 days or something? But you can get an extension. So
yeah,
that would be so wild.
2 weeks.
So you'd want to send him down like just before the weekend series starts, so that way he can get like as many games in as possible, and then be like, okay, bring him back. And so
the hype train would be choo-chooing right along if that happened.
And I'd be in line with everyone on I-25 going up.
Yeah, so. Exactly. Well, Brennan, I want to thank you so much for joining the Mile High Hockey Lab today, man. We really appreciate you coming on. Why don't you tell us a little bit of what you're working on lately, and then we'll sign off.
I'm working at the Rink, so it's the-rink.com. And I'll be doing mostly Eagles work and a little bit of Avalanche work. And I've got Ryan Sykes with me. He's at Ryan Sykes 10. Is his user handle on X, Twitter, whatever it is. And so he'll be working with me on covering the Avalanche and a little bit of Eagles. So.
Nice. Well, yeah, we really appreciate your coverage. Love the videos you've been posting on X or Twitter.
Thanks for going down there with me. It really is a very valuable resource to know what's going on.
Yeah, and folks,
with the morning skates right now, that's like 10 minutes away from me. But it's going up to Loveland. That's a 2-hour drive.
Yeah. Well, Avalanche fans, if you haven't already, be sure to head on over to that social media platform and follow Brennan at Brennan_Vogt. That's Brennan, BRENNAN_VOGT, for everything Brennan from the Rink, Colorado Avalanche and Eagles coverage. Brennan, thanks again, man, for coming on. We appreciate you. You have a wonderful day.
Oh, you too. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, you four, thank you as well for joining me. This is the Mile High Hockey Lab. If you haven't already, please like, subscribe, and share with your fellow Avalanche fans. All of these live broadcasts are on YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, and then again in their recorded form on Spotify, Audible, Apple Podcasts, and all that good fun. So be sure to turn on your alerts and stuff so you know every time we go live. We're going to start trying to do this once again every week. Now that we're getting closer to camp and the season, we have more top 25 under 25 coming your way this week from the website at milehighhockey.com. And signing off, my name is Adrian Hernandez. I'm here with Ezra, Evan, Jacob, and Jackie of milehighhockey.com. You Avalanche fans, have a wonderful evening.
Welcome to
Mile High Hockey Lab.
Mile High Hockey Lab.